Much of what we've been able to achieve through the Candid Frame has been a result of your kindness and support. You have been a regular listener, and you've helped to spread the word. And it was through your generous contributions that we were able to create the Candid Frame app and make it available to everyone for free. You can continue to support the work we do here by contributing as little as $2 a month to our Patreon campaign. You not only help to meet our costs of production, but provide us the means to improve the quality of the show and do so much more. Contribute today by visiting patreon.com/The Candid Frame. This is Ibadian X, and this is The Candid Frame. Today, people make a big deal over how many virtual friends they have on Facebook or followers on Twitter and Instagram. Their heads seem permanently fixed into a slight downward tilt as they stare at the glowing screen of their tablet or phone. Yet one can be connected to thousands of people in a virtual world and not even know the name of their next-door neighbor. It seems like these tools that promise connection is succeeding in putting greater distance between us all. That is why I was so excited to hear about a photographer who uses his camera to connect to the people in his adopted home of Amsterdam. Vincent von Kleef reached out to complete strangers using, surprisingly enough, a Facebook group that people in his community frequent. He has used it to not only become a part of his community, but also launch the beginning of what he hopes to be a professional photographic career. Well, Vincent, welcome to the Candid Frame. Thanks for reaching out. I'm looking forward to having a chance to talk with you.
Well, thank you, and I'm hugely honored to be featured in your show. Thank you.
Yeah, your personal project really sparked an interest in me because I live in a small community here in Southern California, and I've always been thinking about, I really would like to get to know and meet people in this town, and maybe I should reach out and just start making portraits of people. And when I saw that that's exactly what you were doing in Amsterdam, I thought, wow, I really have to talk to this guy. So okay. I'm glad you reached out. From what I was reading, Amsterdam is a city that you had moved to. Where were you living before, and what led you to move to Amsterdam?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I've moved to Amsterdam in 2016 because of my then girlfriend. Unfortunately, the love is over. But she was the main reason to move to Amsterdam. I lived near Utrecht, that's the center of the Netherlands. And I didn't have a particular reason to go to Amsterdam besides my girlfriend. But the end of the relationship also sparked this project because I was confronted with, and now what? I was triggered to get to know the people in my neighborhood better. Also, I wanted to hone my skills as a photographer, especially with portraits. And I've considered doing a workshop, but I admire the work of artists who are self-taught better than let's say, educated artists. Well, actually, after a meditation practice, the idea just fell in front of me on the table, let's put it that way. It actually covers all these aspects. Meeting new people, just get some elbow grease, and thirdly, also I really want to use my talents to give something back to the community. So
before we get into details about the project, I just want to have a better understanding of the community in Amsterdam. The population in Amsterdam is about 800,000. Is the town or the city you came from much smaller? Had you lived there all your life or for a long period of time?
Well, I'm Dutch. I have Dutch parents, but I'm actually born in England. But my dad and my mom moved back to the Netherlands when I was 18 months old. Mm-hmm. I've grew up in the north of the Netherlands, and I've lived in the center of the Netherlands near Utrecht for almost all my life. The area in which I'm now living in Amsterdam is what they call the Bos en Lommer area. It's a very mixed area with different sort of people. Amsterdam is the capital of the Netherlands, and very huge and very differentiated. The center is very expensive to live. So what you see the last couple of years in Amsterdam, that the former, let's say, bad neighborhoods of Amsterdam, which Bos of Lommer is one of them, are getting an upgrade because people are moving out from the center of the city outwards to the, the outer circles of Amsterdam. So that means that in a neighborhood like Bos en Lommer, you've got a very broad range of people living from all kind of social backgrounds, ethnics, and things like that.
So what were you doing in terms of work before you moved to Amsterdam?
I've always had, commercial jobs, just selling professional services. But in the last couple of years, as my photography progressed, I developed a stronger yearning to do something with my talent and with my passion. This project also sparked that passion, and I really wanted to do something that I really can't, to do something with heart and soul. So I don't have any professional background in photography whatsoever, but I consider myself good enough to make the jump to professional photography. So I'm trying to do that. Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think about, I'd like to take portraits of people. I'd like to build a portfolio. I'd like to do this as a living. But yes. One of the sort of immediate excuses for not doing that is that, I don't know enough people to make portraits of, right? Mm-hmm. And your remedy was to actually reach out to strangers.
Yes.
So tell me how that idea came up for you, and what exactly did you do to start connecting with people in your community?
It's a very profound question. Well, I'm a people's person in the first place. I really like to connect to people. It's the way I am. Like I said, I wanted to connect with people in my direct neighborhood. So I've taken photographs and portraits of family members and friends in the last couple of years. But I really wanted to take the next step. And what I found that the real quality of taking good portraits is having the connection with the person you are photographing. I've always had jobs which there was a necessary need for making that connection. Mm-hmm. So I'm quite able to have a chat with strangers and to make them feel at ease. So I'm not afraid of connecting with total strangers. That triggered me to just post a request in the Facebook group of Bos en Lommer, simply asking people, do you want to take that I take pictures of you? And after the first responders, I experienced quite an avalanche, huge response of people who reacted after seeing the first photographs. And it just, escalated after that. Yeah, it just progressed in a very natural way. I even had to stop taking in new people after a few weeks because it was just too huge to manage on my own. Yeah.
Did you have any doubts or concerns before you made that post?
No. Well, it was quite a intuitive action. I just felt it was the right thing to do. For a slight moment, I hesitated if it was, let's say, in line with what the administrator of the Facebook page wanted with the page. So I checked the list of postings, and I didn't see any projects, anything like that. So that strengthened me in my idea of, this could be a really good idea. So I didn't really hesitate at all, and I checked during the project if people were still fine with it.
So tell me about the first person, your first shoot from this series.
The first person, let's think. I've almost did 50 shoots, so I have to look. Well, let's say the first responders were the people who did not respond based on the photographs I've showed within the Facebook group, and these people. Well, they have a special place in my heart because they are the heroes of my project. Many people are quite hesitant to take the leap, to make the jump, to let them me take their photographs. So, but having said that, thinking back about all those shoots. You get into some sort of groove during the shoots, but from the first shoot, it was just a natural thing to do. You walk to each other, you are complete strangers, you make a chat. Most of the people start with saying that they are quite afraid of the camera. People are very conscious about the way they look. I notice also that we live in an Instagram area with filters, and people are used to have a, let's say, virtual look of themselves, if you know what I mean. Right. And I shoot with a high quality lens, and I don't use Photoshop or whatsoever, so it's quite in your face. Some people are afraid to be confronted with their real, genuine appearance. Most of the people start with saying, well, I have to warn you, Vincent, I always have my eyes closed and I never have a great picture of me. And what I try to do is, step away from my role as a photographer and just taking a walk in the park, a stroll and chatting about the things that really matter for them. While we're talking, I take some pictures. People sense when you are genuinely interested in their story, and when you look them straight in the eyes and you listen and you don't point your camera straight into their faces. Well, maybe that's a quality of me as a photographer. It's actually the feedback I get often quite a lot of times, that people often don't have the notion of me taking photographs. So yeah, it felt natural from the first shoot on, and I've made some great friends in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
I was going to ask you how you build rapport with your subjects, because photographing someone who's a complete stranger to you, there is this sort of underlying tension, or if not the word, if tension isn't the right word, just sort of cautiousness. Yeah. Right? That you have to sort of overcome in order to solicit something genuine from the photograph. So just what you described in terms of just being engaged with them, listening to them, and not making necessarily the photograph the whole focal point of the encounter is really valuable.
Absolutely right. Well, what has helped, I think, is that I don't only post pictures in the Facebook group, but also tell a story about the meeting, the getting to know each other meeting. So I combine storytelling with my pictures, and the pictures themselves are storytelling, but also the text. And quite a few people thought that I was a copywriter myself, because I'm quite able to write a positive, uplifting story about the people that I've photographed. So people get to know me as a photographer better during the shoots. It's always positive and uplifting, and so people tend to feel as if they know me already, if you know what I mean, and that helps with building up a rapport. But the first people that responded, I think these were the people who are just easy with other people, just like me. Yeah. So you don't have to make that much of a rapport with that kind of people. But it's more that the people who came afterwards that are more, let's say, shy, of self-conscious, but they responded because of what they saw in the Facebook group and reading the stories and really enjoying not only the pictures but also the story I tell about the people.
Well, that's a really wonderful reflection of you, that people that are shy, that typically don't think that they photograph well, were willing to make themselves vulnerable and put themselves in front of you. That must have felt like a huge sort of compliment to your skills.
Actually, it is. You know what? I've always struggled with acknowledge my own talents. I think it's a problem many photographers have, especially in the transition to becoming a professional photographer. I've heard a lot of times, "Oh, you're such a good photographer," but I always ended that but you're my friend or you're my brother, things like that. But I've noticed that I have a very important skill besides taking good photographs, and that is with connecting with people. So what you say is very profound, is that to be able to take a real meaningful portrait of people, you have to really connect with the other person. Well, especially with children. I photographed quite a lot of children, and often I get told by the mom or dad as well, I don't think the children will be very motivated. They don't want to take their pictures taken and so forth. And one example that is very profound to me is one little girl will later on, her mother told me that she is very, very, very difficult with strangers. But within a couple of minutes, she transformed into a wonderful, open, lovely girl. Her mother was very moved, not only by what she saw during the shoot, that her little girl transformed from a shy personality to a wonderful, open personality, but also the pictures that resulted in that special interaction. So that's really a great bonus of this project, is that I'm reaffirmed that I have a special skill in connecting with people.
So tell me about the logistics. How do you work this out? They reach out to you on the Facebook group and you meet them. You mentioned in a park, but explain how, in general, you connect with people and schedule and make all that stuff happen.
Well, I didn't expect to have so much people responding, so I had to use some sort of system with it. First of all, I asked the people to respond via my website. It's a portfolio website. Some people responded that, looking at my photographs, they suspect me to be a professional photographer. So some people thought it was a cheap way of getting new customers. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is that just a few people that responded in that way. Most of the people responded back for me, stating that I'm not, it's for a good cause and have the best intentions to do that project. But having said that, I've used my website to take the applications. Well, I don't have a system for that. I mail the persons back and I schedule a shoot. And I live nearby the park. I've had a fixed time schedule. That's about it.
Well,
and
tell me about this application. What does it consist of?
Well, people send me a request for a photo shoot via my website, and I respond to that with a suggested date. And after that, I send them a link to the photographs. That's how simple as that.
Oh, okay. Well, you said that you got an overwhelming response to them. So at some point, you had to choose who you would photograph. So how did you sort of weed through the many people who were interested and choose the people that you actually wanted to capture?
Well, I actually didn't want to discriminate among the people. the first who that a lot of people respond, but didn't respond back to my response in order to schedule a shoot. So only the people who respond with a reaction of a specific date, I schedule that. But having said that, it's a very good question, because what I noticed is that, Amsterdam is a city with a lot of different nationalities. And most of the people that responded were from Dutch origin, and 90%, I think, is women. Most of the time they take their children with them or their spouse. But we have a lot of different nationalities and ethnic groups here in Amsterdam. And so what I've done, I've continued the project this week, and I've teamed up with an organization here in Amsterdam to recruit, let's say, people from non-Western countries in order to have a more balanced representation of the people here in Bos en Lommer.
That's great. Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, just that, because it seems that when people, I've heard of a lot of projects where people have solicited subjects from things like Craigslist, which is, I don't know if you have it where you are, but Craigslist is basically like a site where people post different things that they want to sell or want to purchase, and a lot of photographers have used Craigslist to solicit subjects. But sometimes, depending on the project that it's working on, there's only a certain type of people that will volunteer themselves for it, right? And a lot of people that you might be interested into just don't either traffic in that particular site or would even consider it, responding to an anonymous post. Right. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting how you're sort of expanding from that, initial circle of people that were available to you.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the reactions I've got, the project is also featured in a local newspaper here in Amsterdam. And one of the reactions from the readers was that the people that I photographed was mainly white. So I didn't get offended by this, but I responded to that to that person that it was not my choice to choose certain demographics within the Amsterdam community, but that's just the case. I mean, the organization which I teamed up with is the main goal of that organization is connecting all these different groups within Amsterdam. And what you see is that I think it's human nature that people, stick to their own roots. I don't know if that's the correct expression in English, but people tend to choose the surroundings of their natural habitat. I think that the Facebook group of Bos en Lommer is not a representation of the Bos en Lommer community, and that's the very reason that I've teamed up with that organization to also to let people from other ethnic groups and social backgrounds to get out their comfort zone and to present themselves to the rest of the neighborhood. And that's a very neat extension of the project. It's a social project for me. Besides a wonderful photography project, it's also a social project in which I connect people with each other. One of the compliments I got from people is that I give the people of Bos en Lommer of Amsterdam a face and a story, and also the people from local small businesses. They present themselves, first of all, as a human being running a business besides that. Well, I think it's a project that has huge potential to take other forms than only photographing people who respond from themselves.
As you said, you've probably heard a number of stories of people's lives, and I'm wondering, is there a particular story that stands out for you that you've heard as a result of working on this project?
Oh, there are countless, but one story I want to mention is that I was very, very moved by that story. It's a young woman that have taken care of her neighbor, and that's a young woman from Africa, from Eritrea. with 2 young children, and she has a temporary status in the Netherlands, if you know what I mean. She can live here for about 5 years, and after 5 years the Dutch government decides whether she can stay or not. So she has no job, she cannot speak English, she cannot speak Dutch, and she has 2 young children. Lisa, the Dutch girl, decided to give me a call and to propose a shoot with her and with her neighbor. And it was very, very beautiful. On my Instagram account, you see a few pictures of a little baby, and that was wonderful because we had to use our hands or our feet to communicate. She's one of the people who has printed out one of the photographs and pinned it on the wall. So it was a very moving. The shoot was very moving. Also, the story behind that is very, very, very beautiful. Yes.
So, what have you learned about the community in which you're living that you didn't know before you started the project?
Well, I think I've got a more realistic view of Amsterdam, because Amsterdam has always been the city that I visited almost as a tourist a few years back. Amsterdam has let's say, Amsterdam, the center of Amsterdam is very tourist orientated, and you've got the problem areas, and that's not a very representative picture of the city. Mm-hmm. And when you connect with the people around you, you see that you meet people of all walks of life, and the gratitude of the people. That's one key thing that I really got from this project. You know, when you live in a big city like Amsterdam, you are not specifically walking down the streets in order to connect with people. You don't really get to know your fellow inhabitants of the city. But when you do a project like this, and you're talking straight away with total strangers, and you talk about their lives, about their family, about their passions, about their problems, it really gives you insight in the human nature of the people which are part of your community. I don't know if I give the proper response to your question, Aberenix, but it's a wonderful insight that I've got from the people of Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it seems like you work pretty simply. Tell us about the equipment that you use, and what kind of lighting do you consider ideal for the portraits that you make?
Well, I use a rangefinder camera. That means it's a manual focus camera. It's a Leica, and I only use natural light. And I use prime lenses. That means that you're kind of restricted in the sort of photographs you can take. And rangefinder camera is also not that intrusive like a DSLR. A DSLR is, for most of people, it's quite intrusive in the sense that it has a big lens on it, big zoom lens on it, and people are quite offended by when you point your camera to them. But when people see my Leica, although it's quite expensive camera, they think, oh, it's just an old film camera. So they don't take it very seriously, and that is very a positive aspect of taking portraits, because people, well, they've seen the results, they know you can take good photographs. But having said that, putting a small camera with a small lens in front of your face is has another effect on people than a DSLR. And also using only natural light, it forces me as a photographer, but also the people who I photograph, is to be flexible and make use of the local weather circumstances. And I've taken photographs in dim light, in snow, in rain, and so it adds to the natural, authentic feel of the photographs.
The pictures are beautifully rendered in black and white. Tell me about that aesthetic choice, and how are you achieving that look?
Well, most of the pictures are indeed in black and white. The thing I like about black and white concerning portraits is that by removing the color in the picture, you are more able to let show the personality through, if you know what I mean. I've always preferred black and white portraits to color portraits. Well, it's an aesthetical thing. I just like it better. And the way I process my post-process my pictures is I shoot in RAW. So photographing for me is mainly making sketches with paper and a pencil. And in Lightroom, I do the post-processing. But like I said before, I don't use any Photoshop or whatsoever. The Leica, it's a quite old Leica camera. It's an M9, well old for digital standards. It has a codec a sensor, and that has a very film-like quality. And I use some codec presets within Lightroom. So that's about it. Very, very simple. Though bells and whistles or whatsoever.
Yeah.
No.
You had mentioned earlier that part of the project was spurred not just by your desire to meet people in your community, but as a way of, getting the gears greased for being able to transition to working as a professional photographer. Tell me about how this project is helping you to make that transition.
Excellent question. Well, like I mentioned before, is that I noticed that I have a quality besides taking good photographs, and that is with connecting people. The professional photography business is very competitive, and the price perception of the photographs has drastically changed in the last couple of years. People are not very willing to pay a considerable amount of money for a picture, so you have to find a way to make a difference among the other photographers. What I've learned from this project is that I'm very good in combining the storytelling aspect with taking pictures. And one of the things that I wanted to do, I've developed a concept for elementary schools in which I take photographs of the children and let the children tell something positive about each other and quoting them in the picture. So I make a book for the school in which I make a headshot of the children, 2 children at a time, and I let them say something positive about the other child. Let's say Peter has beautiful eyes, or she's very good in mathematics or things like that. And then I take a picture of the 2 of them, and I'll write a little story about how I experienced the interaction with the children. And that's an example of using your photography skills and your people skills in order to have a meaningful document for, in this case, the school and their parents and the children. In that way, it has given this project me the insights that it's a very good way for me to combine my 2 talents.
Have you given any thought as to what your end goal is for the project itself? Is there a certain number of portraits that you would like to make? Would you want to have an exhibit, to produce a book?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I've had the suggestion for an exhibition or a book many, many, many times. A few people of Amsterdam city itself have done the suggestion also to have an exposition or a book. To be honest, maybe I will do it, but it's not my end goal. If there are enough people who put pressure on me, I might do it, but I think the real revenue of this project is the human aspect of it. I don't have a goal of amount of pictures or Well, I'm a sort of local celebrity at this point. People recognize me on the street as, "Hey, you're the photographer of the Facebook group." But that hasn't been my end goal for this project. I just started with an idea after a meditation practice, and it just sort of exploded after that. What I want to do, however, is to let it organically grow into something even more meaningful. That's the one of the reasons that I've in contact with a lot of organizations here in Amsterdam, because everybody is, especially nowadays, we live in certain times nowadays, and people are very in need of connection with each other. I think photography is a great way to connect with people. I think that's the, let's say, the goal I have in mind, but it's not an end goal. I don't know where it ends. I hope it ends that with me being a professional photographer, but I will continue this project whatsoever. But I think it might be changing along the way, but letting photography be a meaningful aspect in the lives of people, that's my key goal with the project.
My last question is one that I ask each guest, and that is, I ask them to recommend another photographer for our listeners to discover and explore on their own. And it can be anyone, someone you've long admired or someone you've recently discovered. So who would that one photographer be and why?
Well, actually, that's really an easy one, because I'm a huge fan of Anton Corbijn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the easy one. His work is truly unique and amazing. I think most of your listeners know Anton Corbijn. Of course, he is the photographer of the Joshua Tree picture of U2, but he's done so many things. And I've had the honor to meet Anton a couple of years ago when he had a book signing in Amsterdam. He did a book on Tom Waits. I was able to meet him and had a little chat with him. He even signed one of my Leicas. So that's amazing. And he's a very humble, down-to-earth guy. And that resonates, I think, with what we were talking about in our conversation, is that he also is someone that is able not only to take great pictures, but also just be very centered as a human being, and to make that connection with the people, but with strangers, but also with a stranger like me, yeah. But also with huge celebrities. It's always Anton Corbijn you are talking to, so that's. That's great.
I'm a great fan of his work. Also, the work that he's done with motion, with his videos and his films. Really, really wonderful stuff. People should definitely check all of that out.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Well, thank you so much for appearing on the show. I really enjoyed the conversation. I found it personally very inspiring, so thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this project. And thanks again. It's really been a blast.
Thanks to Vincent for joining us. Find out more about him and his work by visiting vincentphotography.nl. And you can show your support for The Candid Frame by writing a review in the iTunes store. As people search for podcasts to listen to, these reviews can lead people to listen to us for the very first time, and that can make all the difference. So if you haven't already, please take the time to do it today. You can also support the show by making a monthly contribution to Patreon. And for as little as $2 a month, you can help us to not only meet the costs of production for the show, but allow us to improve our podcast, YouTube channel, and website. Or if you just want to make a one-time contribution to the show, you can do so via PayPal. You'll find links for both on the Candid Frame website or the show notes. Thanks to Sol Traverso and Wolfgang Medlich. To access our complete archive of interviews, download the free Candid Frame app, available for Apple iOS and Android. Not only will you immediately receive the latest episode on your phone or tablet, but you can now easily share your favorite episode on your social networks and help spread the word. Or if you want to drop me a line or make comments about the show, you can email me directly from the app. Download it today by clicking on the link in the show notes or the website at thecandidframe.com. The Candid Frame's audio engineer is Martin Taylor, who you can find at theothermartintaylor.com. The show's senior producer is Cynthia Parker, and our music is from Kevin MacLeod, whose royalty-free music can be found at incompetech.com. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at IbadianX. And this is IbadianX, and this is The Candid Frame.